Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another panel about myth. This one's probably the most informal panel of the night. It's just going to be a couple of us talking about lore. So I'm Eric Simon. I'm the line developer for Myth Dawn of Heroes.
And I'm Ross Watson. I'm the line manager for Myth Tales of Legend, the role playing game.
All right.
Now this
So yeah,
this may not be the most informal. I mean, it's a challenge accepted if you want. I have one right after this about my RPG stuff. So
you had like a whole title for your panel, so I assumed that you were very organized for what you were going to talk
uh,
about.
it's all a
Um,
facade.
so yeah, I thought we would uh, just kind of start with giving a little bit of what's the sort of the framework of the story at the beginning of sort of getting into each of our games. So Ross, why don't you tell people kind of what's going on in the world in general when people open up Tales of Legend?
Oh well, there's quite a bit going on.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there's four whole kingdoms worth of stuff, and we have adventures that take place in a lot of different areas of the world. But I mean, one of the most interesting bits of lore is one we've talked about on the campfire chats, which is about the Lucanine, the werewolves that have emerged from the Moonglow Tower, all due to a weird pact that their goddess Lunan Canaan had made.
Mhm.
And of course, there's a lot of there's the darkness involved in that and some other things, but we're really excited to kind of introduce the Lucanine to people as one of the new factors in the Four Kingdoms and what their deal is all about. But of course, there's the classic enemies as well too. So we have a lot of things going on with the Unholy and Nosferatu. We have things going on with yeah, precisely. We have there's more. I don't want to get too far down that road, but those are just
Right,
some of the
sure.
things.
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of Dawn of Heroes, that last bit you said really kind of touches on my focus, because um, certainly you've seen the demo for Avatar of Shadow and the Unholy are all over that, and we'll also be bringing the Lucanines into the board game at the same time. So there's definitely going to be some of that going on, and um, there was this thing that was kind of established in the previous myth lore um, about the Unholy. So there's the boss of the Unholy, Bones, and Bones is all about uh, everybody's great because they're skeletons, and being a skeleton is so much better than being flesh. Why would you have meat? And Bones is kind of he's very bone centric, I would say, and then there's Nosferatu, who's like the commander kind of in there of the Unholy, and it's pretty clear that there's some tension there, and there's some hints that Nosferatu may have been the main uh, boss of the Unholy previously before Bones, and Bones has kind of taken over that, and that's a story that I am definitely into.
Oh,
And,
me too. Me too. Not Nosferatu has been around for a long time. He's actually one of the oldest characters in the entire world of myth. Did you know that?
I did actually, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was around to see. He actually saw the end of the battle at the end of the Age of Legend
Hmm.
at Farron Rock. He actually saw Hearn fall. Like that's so just like right on its face. He's been around a really long time, and then probably even longer than that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I would imagine there's quite a bit of interesting lore about how Bones rose to prominence and how Nosferatu feels about that.
Yeah. So we're one of the one of the interesting things. So I showed earlier and in my preview panel, I showed a monster card for the newly awakened Bones. Uh which is different from Bones at his fullest. And there's a short adventure about the newly awakened Bones, and we're kind of hinting at his history and sort of why he is what he is. Yeah, and then there's Nosferatu he's got his fingers in a lot.
He does. He's actually involved in one of the locations for the adventures in the adventure guide is Dorsey Manor, and Dorsey Manor is this mansion in the Riverlands, and Nosferatu is one of those guys he can afford to just disappear for like 100 years.
Yes.
And so a lot of the secrets of Dorsey Manor are things that he's planted at different points in the past to sort of determine where the Dorsey Manor goes from here. So in the hero's investigation of Dorsey Manor is where they start to find out a few things about Nosferatu. Again, the guy's he's kind of interesting. He's I guess I would say a little bit like Vandal Savage from the DC Comics stuff. He's got so much history that alone, just the weight of all those years, kind of informs him and what he wants to do.
Yeah, and there are these new tools for him to use, the Lucanines. And yes. I showed a minion card of the Lucanines, but I didn't show the other minion card of the Lucanines, which you may be aware of what I'm hinting at there. The ones, because there are factions among the Lucanines as well, and if you've read the World of Myth, which you can get in PDF if you haven't, if you weren't able to get a physical copy, but there's a little bit of the lore of the different tribes of Lucanines who have come through, and they're definitely yeah, they're not all happy together, and let's just say some of the more aggressive ones might ally with unsavory folk.
Well, I think that was one of the neatest things we did when we worked with Brian and Keith to come up with the Lucanine, was the idea that they're not just one big monolithic race, that they have splits and factions, and their different clan leaders have different goals, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
We have an interesting question in the question, the chat. Which of us is the bigger Myth fan?
Huh.
Well.
I mean, of what aspect of Myth? Because I feel like you guys on the RPG side are digging so much further into the lore even than I am, and so I keep checking with you on some things, but like, I like the board game and.
Well, Myth is not just one thing. Oh, lore. He's asking, okay, so specifically Myth lore is the question.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm gonna have to give that one to my lead writer, which is JM Defoe.
JM is so solid on this stuff.
Yeah, JM Defoe is the biggest Myth lore fan. He actually kind of built a lot of it based on notes and things from Keith and Brian, and things that I had talked about and that Eric had talked about, and things that had been scattered throughout the different adventures. So yeah, JM is probably the biggest one, but I think Eric has his own interesting outlook on Myth lore as well. So
yeah,
you pinged me just the other day with, you're like, here's something I'm thinking about for another future wave, and I was like, ooh, like there's usually like a good collaboration going on where we come up with fun ideas about things to do with the lore.
Oh yeah, I named that faction, by the way.
Oh, okay. So
should I?
No.
Oh, you don't think I should? You don't think I should share?
Well, it's up to you. I mean, you are the creator. You get to say, what you do or do not say about things. But let's just say there was something neat that we discussed.
Yeah, okay. I just gotta share this. because
Okay,
this will be a surprise for you, Ross, and
you do
you're
you.
gonna you're gonna you're gonna be interested in this. So not for uh so for the second wave, which is I am referring to as Forged in Fire, and classic myth fans will have some hints of what might be involved in that. Uh, but yeah, so the new faction that I want to throw in there is the Taraxian Dwarves.
Taraxians, nice,
Yeah, so
nice.
as in followers of Taraxis.
Right. That's exactly. I mean, that's where I was going with it.
Yeah, yeah, and
That's interesting.
yeah. So if you Taraxis, of course, is the previously banished leader of the cult of the Fireborn.
Mm, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff we can do with that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and get you excited about that.
Yeah,
Um,
that is exciting. That's what I like about collaborating with you. You come up with interesting twists on things that were already in the world.
well, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have done this if you hadn't been already thinking about. One of the things about the Myth board game that I have been inspired to adjust, especially you'll see it more in later waves, is going to the non-humans, bringing in non-humans a lot, because there are non-humans in this world, and I think that's part of what makes it cool.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for
and
sure.
tell me about the dwarves, because I look at my copy of World of Myth, and I actually did a keyword search, and I literally found anything referring to dwarves twice, and they were very much in old ages. It says they're dead. Now
they
tell me
they
about that.
So the dwarves suffered greatly during the Age of Breaking. They suffered terribly. Um, the elves and the dwarves both had vast empires at different points in the past, but during the Age of Tears, the Age of Breaking, they just suffered terribly. And really, there's only two and a half locations left, like dwarf holds. And I'm counting Blackwell as like half a dwarf hold, even though it really isn't.
Right.
Um, but yeah, the dwarves they just got cast down, and Grimalore, which is one of their holds, it never ever recovered.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Gramrock did. Gramrock is kind of the last, like, if you want to go see what the dwarves were like, you go there. Now the dwarves, of course, are they're stout, courageous people. They fear very little in the world of myth, and that's actually represented in our role playing game. They're tough, and they're determined to do things, and they are also very good crafters. But they're also like they have short little legs, so they're slow. But I mean, unlike say elves or Tavians, they don't have any particular um, hatreds or enmities with groups that are out there. So they don't really have like a specific enemy that targets just them. Um, but yeah, they're pretty cool. I mean, I was actually working on some magic items for them just the other day,
Nice.
and we have a question from Planar Crossroads who says,
Mhm.
"What are your favorite factions?"
Mm. So for me, I'm gonna go with the Okians.
Oh, nice, nice,
Yeah,
interesting.
I really enjoy the Okians, and let's just say uh, I'm really I've got to wait a bit. It's not even the second wave. Later, when I bring back the Okians, I want to play on the tension between the Okians and the Lucanines, because of course the Okians follow uh, Anankara, and the Lucanines follow Lunankainen, and that was a bad breakup.
Yeah, for sure. They're separated by a good amount of distance, and the Lucanine are not quite as tied to their god as the Yokians are. But I imagine, yeah, that would be especially, let's put it this way, on the Okians' behalf, there would definitely be some bad feeling, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think the Lucanine are all like that worried about it, but the Okians would be like, you.
Yeah.
That's
So that's that will also be the wave that I want to bring in my first Lucanine hero into the game, because obviously, we're introducing the Lucanines as servants of darkness, but there's it's more complicated than that. Um, and Ross, I can tell you today that I have decided what class to combine with the Lucanine here, the
Ooh,
first Lucanine hero,
nice.
and I think it's really entertaining.
Okay.
Uh, I want to have a Lucanine swashbuckler.
Yes, I was just thinking swashbuckler.
Yeah. So
Perfect. Yeah.
so yeah. So that wave, uh, is also going to have the Naga in it.
Oh God.
So
You know
so
what I'm
yeah.
thinking right now?
Uh huh.
I'm thinking of so there was a show on the Disney Afternoon back in the day. It was
Oh
Tailspin.
yeah. Yes, you see. Yes, Don Carnage.
Garage Carnage, yes.
Absolutely, Don Carnage.
That's exactly where my brain went. I was like, oh, it's Dark Carnage.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So Ross, what's your favorite faction?
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually really love the Naga. And one of the things I love about the Naga is I actually love the sort of it's almost Shakespearean, but there's the three sisters, Medusa, Aurelia, and Eumelia, and how they work against each other, work with each other, and of course, I'm going to try to pronounce this Slaignoth, their sleeping god, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know that one. I don't know how to say that one either.
But we
Sl-
so we worked on this quite a bit. When JM and I were coming up with things like the Tavians and Huhanasi, which is the Blessed Isle, and the Naga have been attacking the Blessed Isle for some time, and they have a racial enmity against the Tavians. So like they will seek out a Tavian first if it's an option, and that's an example of something we'd been talking about earlier. But no, the Naga are interesting, and I like the little snippets of story that we have about them. I'd like to find out more about where just some of the details about like the ritual that they have to do, the awakening to bring their goddess or god. Is it? I forget if it's. I think it is their goddess. It's the mother of the right.
I
Um,
believe so.
I'm not, when it comes to that kind of creature, like I don't think it even matters, right? But
Right.
yeah, that's what I like is the Naga.
Hmm. Very cool. Very cool. Um. So yeah. So are there Naga enemies even in the first wave of Tales of Legend? Then are we waiting on
We're
those?
kind of, we're a little waiting on that one because there's just a lot of them, a lot of factions out there. So
Yeah.
originally we were focusing on the unholy and the Lucanine, and we branched out a little bit. We got some grubbers and things of that nature. But as our stories go on, yes, we're going to delve deeper into. I can even tell you right now that one of the things we're thinking about for Wave 2, like one of the things we'd really like to focus on there, is the tailless.
What a coincidence!
Right? Shocking.
I am also looking at the tail list for my wave too. Huh.
Yeah, the tailless and the unholy will have a big role to play in what's coming up. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. But the Naga, don't fret. The Naga are on deck. They're I have not forgotten about them because they are one of my favorite factions.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of what I've tried to do, sort of with my organization, um, for the various waves, is to think about, okay, we need to hit certain things that classic myth players have already seen, but that are so cool that I really need new players to see them too. So so like wave two, I had to bring in the TikToks right away in wave two because I love them. Uh and I really think that that's the sort of thing that we should be exploring more and really featuring. Um I think that they've got just a lot of possibilities story wise.
Yeah, well, I want to talk. I think we should talk about at some point like how Rusty Sprocket and like basically how like the EA and the Elementals, they have all these weird TikTok like implants and things of that nature, almost cybernetic, if you will. Like
Yep.
there's a really interesting story there that we should tell sometime about how that all came about, and because EA is one of those godlike beings, and yet she is now like part machine, which is really interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and so I will say that I'm holding the elementals for later for me, so you have some time to sort that out in your stories because yeah, it's a real question that I'm going to have to think about is especially with her because the classic myth model of the is so good that I hate to change it. I would really like to give people the opportunity to pick it up again in the future, um, but also like playing more with that progression into machine is also cool. So I don't know. I I mean it's got some machine in there, so can probably get away with it. But but yeah, um but yeah, so the Rusty Sprocket thing, by the way, uh
Yeah, so I mean, there's
so
basically
so
she had a minion, and the minion learned from Rusty Sprocket how to do this. Is a guy called a Cretion,
yeah.
and or Cretion Cretion. I think it's Cretion.
Yeah. The great thing is I don't think anybody knows how this is pronounced, so we're gonna say that all pronunciations are fine. Uh
They're
and
they're all
that's
valid. They're all valid.
yes. Um so Rusty Sprocket's uh ending story in the Golden Gear adventure, um, I find, shall we say, very comic booky in terms of, yeah, we at the end of this adventure, this horrible villain has been put away and is being reformed. I'm sure that will go well. Uh, right? Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. So,
Yeah,
so yeah.
one thing I think that is kind of special about Myth is that its elementals are different. Like a lot of fantasy worlds have elementals, and a lot of them are basically like, look, it's made out of fire. Look, it's made out of water. Look, it's made out of air. Look, it's made out of earth. Myth's elementals are not like that. Myth's elementals are basically devices. They're things that are built around or contain the essence of an elemental. They're more, I would say, like akin to golems.
Mhm.
Really, they're kind of they're not mindless though, but they are fueled and driven, and I want to say maybe piloted by an
Yeah.
elemental core. Um, but they're no longer a pure representation of that element,
Mhm.
and kind of makes me wonder like anyway, I could go off on a long tangent about this. I'm sure JM and I could probably do a whole campfire chat just about elementals in Myth, but yeah.
Yeah, and should. You should.
Yes, we should. I'm making a note.
um, but yeah, so I will say that I'm trying. I feel like there's a danger of you have more freedom, frankly, to cross over things. I'm trying to. I have to tell slightly more focused adventures because I can only release so many miniatures at a time. Um, uh, so yeah, that's definitely an advantage that you have now. I'm because I've got all this stuff in mind for the wave two. but I kept the elementals for wave 3 because they go with and
well, you're the foundation. Really, the board game Dawn of Heroes, it is literally the foundation of what myth is, and we're building on that. And we may build some fancy looking castles on top of that foundation, but it is a foundation that you are the steward of. You are the one who kind of keeps that bedrock together. So I don't think you're focused, not necessarily limited.
Well, I mean, constraint breeds creativity, so that's good.
It honestly does. That's something I found a lot of. But of course, Rusty Sprocket doesn't know that.
No. Although he's probably figuring it out in jail right now. But yeah, so that's one of the whole idea of sort of the resurgence of the dwarves kind of came from you guys, and that has really given me a lot of thought about the stories that I want to tell in my second wave, because there's several things that happened back at the time the dwarves went away, and they have some, shall we say, ancient enemies as well. and those are things that I want to tap into. You're trying to figure out who I'm talking about, aren't you?
Right. I'm like, wait a second. I remember reading that the dwarves were hounded, but it's not a thing that has become like a lifelong or a forever. It was the Grubbers, wasn't it?
It was originally, so crawlers harassed them, but that wasn't who I'm thinking of. It's
the dragons. The dragons. Yeah, the dragons. The dragons are the ones that finished them off. But and we have thoughts on where some of those dragons may be, actually. So
okay, well, we'll very curious about that because I'm definitely there's definitely going to be some of that happening in Wave 2.
Basically, one of the things we're thinking is that so Grimalore is the hold that is decayed. It's almost dead, right? It's sort of just hanging on. But the deepest depths of Grimalore, which was a dwarven hold that they mined deeply, and we think that quite possibly one of the things that's down there, sort of eating things in the dark and growing strong, is probably a dragon down in the Grimalore depths. Oh, here's a good question for you. Dan the Scald says, how does Ulysses feel about fan-made content? Is that for the board game, I'm guessing? I don't know. But lore in general, maybe? I don't.
Yeah, in general. So if you're new to Ulysses and haven't necessarily followed one of our major RPG lines, you may not know this, but yeah, we continuously with Drive-Thru RPG, we have fan content licenses, and so this is a lot of other games do this. For us, we've got the Infiniverse for Torg, we've got the Scriptorium for the Dark Eye. Yeah. And then there will be one for Fading Suns, but that is waiting on people actually having the books in their hands. So yeah, we want people to have books in their hands before we have that. But then yeah, so there will be one for Fading Suns. So I'm guessing, Ross, you would be fine with doing something like that for Tales of Legend?
I have zero objection to it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And because Dawn of Heroes, because Dawn of Heroes, yes, if you're in Europe, you might have Fading Suns book, but North America does not yet. But so for Dawn of Heroes, because we're doing such an adventure focused approach, whereas classic myth tended more towards the freeform and do what you want kind of play, but we're really focusing on the storytelling, the adventures, and that's the sort of thing that I would like to explore a similar fan content license for that. Um, and that I think it would be extremely cool to have people creating adventures for the board game, um, and that would be awesome. So yeah.
Are there adventures in the board game that deal with dragons?
Well, not in this wave.
Okay. I like that answer. I imagine on the board they'd have to be pretty big. Like they wouldn't be a small dragon.
Oh yeah. Well, so yeah. So okay. So we've been playing with base sizes. So I don't know, Russ. I think you were part of this conversation, but I can't remember if you were there for it. But we had an entire meeting about miniature base sizes.
I remember this one.
Yeah. So part of the problem there is Myth has had 3 miniature base sizes in the past, and the middle one doesn't actually match the grid. And so we have done some thinking, and we're actually changing things up a little bit so that that middle base size will be 2x2 on the grid. It will match the grid, and bosses will now be 3x3, which, and for classic myth there were 2 ultra bosses. I don't know if you know this, but the one ultra boss was the Kraken, which you may have gotten a hint of which wave that might go along with.
Are you planning to release the Kraken?
I may release the Kraken, and the other one is, of course, Urlock.
Yeah. Now that's kind of what I was. That's kind of where JM and I were going with Grimlock. Is that Grimlore is that maybe that's where Urlock, ended up trapped beneath, maybe, or is down there. So you have his children, the Dragon Singer and the Dragon Knights and things of that nature. That could be a thing. That could be a lot of fun, actually, to do something like that with Grimlore.
Gotcha. So yeah, if you want to know when I think I might re-release that miniature, model, I guess at that point it's not so mini. But yeah, and by the way, those things that were called ultra bosses, I am tentatively calling titans. I'm just trying to reduce the word boss. So, but yes, Titan is how I'm referring to those very large models, and that would go along with that second wave, wouldn't it?
That would be pretty neat. So yeah, I mean, we've kind of wandered all over into some interesting places in this discussion, which one of the reasons why I love it. Actually, what we should do is get a campfire chat with you and me and JM.
Oh yeah.
And the 3 of us could riff on some stuff. That would be pretty sweet. I think I'll see if I can set that up with Robert at some point.
Definitely.
JM's on vacation right now, so we can't do it today.
Right.
Eventually, we'll get to it.
Yes. Otherwise, he would be here.
Right. But yeah, where else? What else do we want to talk about myth lore wise?
Yeah.
You obviously know your ages. You know your history of myth.
A bit, yeah. I've read through the World of Myth book a few times. It turns out.
It's my number one resource when I'm working on the RPG.
Yeah, it's super good, sure. And yeah, I actually did the editing on the fiction and the adventure summaries, so I scoured those in great detail.
Nice.
But yeah, and yeah.
I guess
So
it's not too difficult to say though that you kind of have myth has all these different layers like an onion. Like at the very top layer, or I don't know. I guess it would be the core or the top. Anyway, at the center of myth really is the idea of the light and the darkness.
yeah.
And the darkness touches so many different things. It touches some of the people we talked about tonight have had dealings with the darkness and things of that nature. And the light, of course, it has tried to work through people as well. And some of those people, like Hearn or the Tribunal, are people that we know about, but it's now the light's kind of now like instead like it's going to work through heroes. It's going to work through individuals. It's gonna spread itself out instead of trying to focus it all into one thing like an avatar or something along those lines. But their struggle is part of what like drives everything. And then you go out from there and you've got like the gods and you've got the different avatars, because there are avatars of other things than just the light and the darkness. There's avatars of winter and avatars of shadow, things of that nature. Well, actually, Avatar Shadow is Avatar of the Darkness, isn't it?
Yes.
It's confusing because there is also a thing called the Shadow, which is not the darkness. It's a long story. We've got a question. Dan the Scald says, does the myth map get more detail down to smaller communities outside the big cities? Will we see that in Dawn of Heroes or Tales of Legend?
Tell us about that, Ross.
The myth we have a new myth map that we're working on that does include some more communities that we have worked on for Tales of Legend. I mean I don't know exactly how much detail you're looking for, because we are adding some extra things to the map, but we're not. I wouldn't say it's like a big major change. It is more detailed than the map in the World of Myth book, but I guess the degree of change is not like super significant. There's a lot of things that are named that weren't named before. There's a few more additional places to go that you can see, like little communities and towns and villages, but it's not hugely different. How about that?
Might we see other maps?
Oh yes. Oh God. So we have maps. You're talking about the maps. Okay, so we have maps for the Three Rivers, which is one of the communities, and we have maps for Devonshire, and we have maps for the Glittering Cavern map. Oh my God!
Oh, it's so gorgeous.
Yeah, we have some really good looking maps coming out for Tales of Legend that will show you. Now you want to zoom in? We can zoom into the city of the Three Rivers. We can zoom into the city, the town of Devonshire, and you can see like the different districts and where. What those places and things are called. So yeah, that is where you're going to get some hyper detail is in the maps that zoom in on those places. And the Glittering Caverns, of course, is the home of the Dusk Court in the Dimwold, I believe. Is it the Dusk Court or the Dang, I don't remember. Sorry. I cram as much as I can into this brain, but it's I believe it's the Dusk Court, and it's where the elves have sort of lived underground, which is a different idea for this. But it's really cool, and the map is just there's a particular style to myth maps, and this cartographer that we have nailed it.
Yeah, I look forward to the previews when you're able to share those. So I think people will get excited.
Right. Now you don't have a lot of maps that you deal with except for your
except for the game
areas, right? But that we did. I think some of the things that we did have a lot of fun with is look at the map in the book, the World of Myth book, and say, hey, there's this thing on the map that actually doesn't have a name. What is that? What we started talking and thinking of like the ideas for what that could be, or where Huhanasi is in relation to the main continents, or so there's at least one place on that map, and I'm not going to say where it is, but there's at least one place on that map that basically just turned into ruins. We were like, no, that place is gone. It's ruined, and stuff like that. Something I'd love to do in the future is get a really detailed map of each individual kingdom of the four kingdoms. A map of High Haldor would be really neat, I think,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that the ruined thing might have to do with bones.
Oh, ooh, nice. That one place that fell into ruin. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
I mean, high populations dying and big battles are great places to farm skeletons.
That's in Haldor, I think, actually, isn't it?
Hmm?
I think that is in Haldor, where
Yes.
that is. Oh yeah, so Haldor is one of those places that is. Yeah, I'd love to see a really detailed map of each of the four kingdoms at some point. That would be a really, really cool thing to do. Because I mean, Haldor on its own just has a lot of neat things. I mean, okay, there is High Haldor, which is a big ass ruin. There's Fair and Rock. There's Grimalore. Lots of things we've talked about tonight. But Falun Guard. Ooh, Falun Guard. Falun Guard's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about Falun Guard, but we should.
I don't, but I'm excited.
So Falun Guard is it used to be a prison. It was one of Ildar's prison during the age of Eldar was an empire through the Age of Steel into the Age of Legend. And the prisoners took control of the prison at the end of that age and turned it into a refuge for ne'er-do-wells, if you will. And as we get into the Age of Heroes, it's basically this really rough town with a black market, and it shelters people who have nowhere else to go. And it's got this big gallows right in the middle of town where they used to hang prisoners. I mean, it's awesome. It's really cool. And their town mayor is called a warden, because of course he is.
I think the Spriggans may have something to say about that. That'll be it.
I don't know if you'd really want to sit in the soil there. Just saying, but
yeah, no, I'm just saying the Spriggan is the journeyman profession for the Spriggans. By the way, one of the things that sorry, my cat is stepping on.
We're actually almost out of time on this one.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. So, but I just want to say, hey, you know how in the classic myth board game, some of the classes were named just by species, like Spriggan and Outsider. Well, I figured to move forward, it would be better if I came up with an actual class. So I have one for the thing that you see the Spriggan doing in the board game. That deck, I have a class for you.
Okay.
I am calling that the Spriggan Tender.
Okay.
A tender of nature, or
interesting.
Garden tender.
Interesting.
So,
not a chicken tender.
Yeah, no. But if you want to discuss, because I know that we're talking about Spriggans having any kind of profession or class. So
that's not to say they can't have their own archetypes.
Right.
And we could eventually have one for them.
So yeah, so there you go. And that's probably going to come in one of the later waves, not one or two. I'll tell you that.
Cool. So yeah, very cool. About something you may not. Well, I know you know this, but something that very few people do is that Spriggans can actually grow their own equipment out of their own body.
Yes, and that is so part of what a Spriggan tender does, of course, but also is grow things for other people, and also sort of is kind of a summoner, but not really, because what they're doing is bringing nature to them. So they're not summoning them from elsewhere; they're just kind of calling them.
Yeah. But that's basically our panel, guys.
Yeah.
I hope you learned some things about the lore of myth. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. I hope Eric. Did you have a good time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always great stuff, and I look forward to listening in on the next panel.
Wow, you really spilled a lot of beans tonight, so I'm excited about this.
I warned you that I was going to be this way.
That's true. Thanks. Take care, everybody, and definitely check out Myth: Dawn of Heroes coming soon.
Yeah.